Hello, everyone, and welcome to New Consciousness Review. I'm Miriam Knight, and our guest today is Bruce Lipton, Ph.D. Bruce is a pioneer in the new biology and an internationally recognized leader in bridging science and spirit. He's a cell biologist by training, and he was on the faculty of the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and later performed groundbreaking stem cell research at Stanford University. He's the best-selling author of The Biology of Belief and the more recent Spontaneous Evolution, co-authored with Steve Behrman. Bruce received the 2009 prestigious Goi Peace Award from Japan in honor of his scientific contribution to world harmony. And in 2012, he was chosen as Peace Ambassador for the 1,000 Peace Flags Project of the Argentinian Mil Milenios de Paz. Bruce, I'm so delighted to have you with us today. Welcome.
Miriam, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here because we haven't talked for a long, long time, and there's so much wonderful new information to talk about.
Absolutely. Actually, your biology of belief was such a groundbreaking, really seminal book in the new science movement, the new biology movement. And now I see that you're trying to do for relationships what you did for understanding of the mechanisms of how our cells react to our environment. So tell me, why did you decide actually to apply these principles of as above, so below, or in this case, as below, so above, to relationships?
Well, basically, my own personal history of relationships was not a very exciting one, or one that I would even want to talk about. Matter of fact, I never really even believed in love in the form that people talk about, that so-called romantic love, because for me it was, oh, that's a movie or a book story thing, but I never saw it in real life. And when I started to understand the nature of the biology of belief and the programming, I realized, yes, I was pretty successful in my scientific career because in my developmental programming at home, education was totally encouraged in any form. But modeling relationships by observing my parents proved not to be that functional. We would then say dysfunctional in this case. And when you understand the nature of biology belief, that our programming during the first 7 years actually controls our lives, I realized that I was playing out the same kind of programs that my parents were engaged in. And obviously I had no success either with that. And then there was a wake-up call that said, but you can change all that. That was Biology of Belief's final message, that we're not stuck with anything. We can change the program. I changed the program. It was kind of interesting because I needed a little help, and I was down in the Caribbean. I had this great life for a while. It was great. I was teaching in the Caribbean at medical schools, and it gave me an opportunity. I had a villa, and I had a beach at my own house, and a pool, and a gardener, and a cook, and all these things, because it was the Caribbean. It was a lot less expensive, but I was a resident there. And I kept looking for a partner, and I've been doing that for years and years and years. Somebody to be there, and and I kept looking for love, and I always had that great line that I thought, geez, this is a really good pickup line, like, well, if you're not doing anything, you want to come and spend some time in my villa in the Caribbean, and I tried it a lot and never really was successful with it. And a particular time I was down at what was called the Yacht Club, and some people had come in, and this woman had come in who was just sailing with people on yachts, and I thought, okay, after talking with her, I thought, oh, maybe I tried this line on her. So I tried the line, and then she looked at me straight in the face and said, I can't be with you. You're too needy. And all of a sudden it was like, slap in my face, big one, But it was so cool because my consciousness caught up really quickly before I said anything. And I realized how important that message was. And I actually said, thank you very much for that. Because I had to stop and realize. I said, look, I have this great job. I have this great house. I live in a perfect environment. I work so little, make enough money. If I can't be happy where I'm at by myself, then there's really something wrong with me. And that was the first time I said, look, how can you're looking for happiness by trying to find it from somebody else. That's a terrible burden for both people, because it really represents a codependent relationship, saying, geez, I'm not happy without a partner, so I need a partner who's going to provide that. And in my biology belief, clarity and logic, it said, wait a minute, if you can't be happy on your own, then this is never going to work. And I just had to pause long enough to look at my life and say, God, I am so lucky. And I started to just enjoy my life more without that urgent need that I was looking for to fill a space. And the most exciting thing happened was, once I started to become so happy with where I was in my life and everything was just so beautiful and perfect, it was surprising that then all of a sudden these potential partners showed up from all over the place, and I realized once I was in a ready state, then I was ready for a relationship. And the book, The Honeymoon Effect, the new book, is really based on a scientific experiment, because I never believed in this kind of romance stuff. I changed my programming. I now am 17 plus years in a honeymoon relationship with my partner Margaret. And for me, this is like this ongoing experiment. I don't know how long it's going to go for. It could. I anticipate forever. And the thing that's really exciting about it is it wasn't done just like, hey, what a coincidence, I found a partner, but it was done with an understanding of why we seek relationships, the mechanisms that bring us into relationships, and most importantly, the mechanism that inevitably causes almost all honeymoon experiences to fade away and become like regular life, and the juiciness and the magic and the wonder that you experience in the honeymoon becomes sort of like everyday life. And there's a reason why we lose it. So I got all excited, because when you understand why you created, how you created, and why you lost the honeymoon, guess what? You are free to create a honeymoon that will be yours every day of your life for the rest of your life.
Hear, hear. Yeah, I kind of did forget to mention that we are talking about your book, The Honeymoon Effect, which has just come out. You talk about the reaction of this woman in the Caribbean who was responding to something that you were emanating. And you talk about this in the book, the vibes. Let's go into the vibes. How do we radiate vibes?
Well, let's just bring it up into context. Most people have experienced something that we would label as good vibes and bad vibes. And we say that, and it's like that, oh, I feel really good, or I feel really bad. And it's like, well, this is not just a thought. This is actually a biological reality. For a very simple reason is this. All organisms, including humans, the primary means of communication is through vibration. This is an understanding that is offered through quantum mechanics and the nature of the energy and the invisible so-called field of energy around us. Organisms respond to fields, and fields determine an organism's position in regard to its survivability. Basically saying this, I could go back to the most simple organism, like cells in my petri dish. I put a cell in a petri dish, I put nutrients in front of the cell, and then put the petri dish back in the incubator. When I come back later, of course, the cell is moved toward and into the nutrients. And I say, in another dish, I put a cell in there, but I put toxins in front of the cell. And when I put it back in the incubator for a while and then take it back out, where's the cell? It's in the complete opposite side of the petri plate from the toxins. The question is this, it's like, okay, who's teaching, or where's the consciousness of a cell to say, go to the food and go away from the toxin? At this primitive level, it's not a thinking kind of process that we're into. It's actually energy. And energy is very important, because people talk about energy. Energy is power. And it's basically life is directly related to energy. When you have lots of energy, you have lots of life. And when you run out of energy, life closes down. In fact, without energy, you die. So our viability, our life, our experiences are a measure of energy. Well, in my lectures, what I talk about is energies and vibrations like ripples on a pond. And when two sets of ripples come and meet each other, so one is moving toward the other and the two ripples converge, they interact with each other. And the two polar extremes of the interaction is sometimes when two ripples come together and they're in harmony, the energy is amplified. And so when two objects sharing the same harmonic energy come together, there's a field of energy that changes. And in humans, you can feel energized when you're in the right place with the right people. Sort of like I mentioned in a lecture, like on Friday night, you're dead tired and you don't want to go to the party that you said you'd go to, but they convince you. You drag yourself to the party. And you start to meet these people. Next thing you know, you're dancing and having a great time. And it's like, well, where'd all that energy come from? You drag yourself to the party. What happens is when you start to surround yourself with energy that's in harmony with you, because you're an energy being, and if the energy is in harmony with you, it adds up. And technical name, constructive interference. Typical name, good vibes. That meant, oh my gosh, I really feel good here. I'm getting a lot of energy. In contrast, perhaps you've walked down some dark street in some place you're not very familiar with, and as you walk down the street, you can feel the energy drain out of your body. We refer to that as bad vibes. It means that there's a loss of energy, and this happens when, if there's an energy that is out of phase with you, not in harmony with you, and there are two ripples coming together, and one set of ripples is you, and the other set is out of harmony. When they come together, there's an interference, but it's not constructive. It's called destructive. The energy flatlines. And you say, well, why is this important? Because the answer is this. Cells live based on their energy. When they have energy, they're empowered, and when they lose energy, they start to die. So what does a cell do? It reads the energy of everything in the field, moves toward things where the energy enhances the vitality of the cell, and moves away from anything that threatens it. That's the first fundamental understanding of how life is organized. I mean, it's like nature doesn't have a school for amoebas to say, look, this is a good thing, go to it, and this is bad. And how do you do it? It's just a built-in reading of the energy. Humans have this. And as I said, we usually feel the extremes, the good vibes and the bad vibes, although there's a complete range of vibes in between. Mm-hmm. And yet, we've been programmed mainly as children to ignore our feelings and listen to what people say. And this is quite unfortunate because the truest of all communication, because it's the communication of every organism on this planet, is the vibration. Mm-hmm. So when you're near the people that are in harmony with you, you feel excited, you feel energized. You are actually drawn to them as much as a cell is drawn to nutrition. And the reason why, your energy is enhanced. And you say, well, why should my energy be enhanced when I'm around a potential mate? So we have to back up one step, Miriam. And it goes like this. There's a built-in biological behavior built into every organism on this planet. Science can give it a name. It's called the biological imperative. And while we can give it a name and define it, we don't know exactly where it is. And what the biological imperative is the drive to survive. Meaning, you take a bacterium, and if you try and kill it, the bacterium isn't just going to sit there and go, oh, okay, go ahead, kill me. The bacterium will try every maneuver to stay alive. So there's something built into an organism that if it sees its life is threatened, it's built-in behavior to stay alive. Well, the biological imperative applies to the individual, but it also applies to the species. When we talk about the imperative of the individual, Miriam, we're saying, look, we all have a drive for food, and we have a drive for water, air. So these are things that are necessary for life. If you're hungry, your behavior will be focused totally on getting food to keep you alive. So that's the individual survival. But then there's species survival, but that automatically entails reproduction. So we say, okay, nature has to bring two species together to reproduce. The basic level is estrogen and testosterone. So that in the male, the testosterone activates the male to reproduce as the estrogen activates the female. And both of these are really environmentally controlled, especially in lower organisms. So let's say two frogs. They come together, the environment's just right, the female ovulates the eggs, the male, in response to the eggs, releases sperm on top of the eggs, and that's reproduction. And the two frogs don't have to court each other. You know that old song, Froggy Went A-Courting? That's not really necessary. Frogs just have the right estrogen, testosterone, boom, they're just reflexively reproducing. The interesting thing about it is this. Lower organisms on the scale, like a frog, when they mate, the fertilized eggs are on their own. The frogs don't stay around and try to be good, conscious parents or anything. They just mate, gone, look for more mating or whatever. But the idea is parenting is not necessary because the individual, when born, is self-sufficient. As you go up the evolutionary scale, you start to find that more complex organisms, when they're born, are not really completely developed yet. And as you get to the level of humans, it says, how long does it take for an individual human child to grow to self-sufficiency? It's like maybe 13 years. And all of a sudden you realize, well, what is nature going to have to do? In the frog, nature just says, you two come together, fertilize the eggs, you can go wherever you want. But when a human comes together, nature says, look, I need to keep two humans around for 13 years as parents. And so I say, well, how does nature encourage behavior? And the answer is good vibes, bad vibes. And it says basically this. At the higher level, good vibes are also pleasure, and bad vibes are pain. And so nature gives us pleasure when we're moving in the right direction to support the biological imperative. And in any time we take a turn and move away from survival, it inevitably costs us some pain in some process, saying, you're going the wrong way. So number one, we're all driven to be in a coupling situation. That's just part of the nature. Why? That's the biological imperative to make sure the species goes on. But we're also driven to stay with a partner as humans for a long period of time, which means that nature says, well, I must provide them with pleasure, otherwise why would they stay together? So all of a sudden you start to realize we have an inherent, innate drive, and this is very critical, Miriam. It's not at the conscious level. It's below conscious level. It's not your thinking. You're driven by the chemistry and the field and the environment to do this biological imperative thing of reproduction, which means you are looking for a partner. And the significance about that is, how do we know when we're, approaching said partner that's going to be right? Well, number one is you start to feel the good vibes, because the vibes tell you that this potential person is in harmony with you or not in harmony based on good or bad vibes. And so we're drawn to them. But then nature says this, not only are you drawn to them for reproduction, but I want to keep you together. So how can I do that, says Mother Nature? And she says, oh, real easy. When you are coming together and you're finding your partner, your brain releases a chemical called dopamine. And dopamine is a pleasure chemical. So basically it says your pleasure is the most positive indication that you're going in the right direction. So when you start to feel pleasure with a person, there's a tendency, oh, wow, I want this. As a matter of fact, pleasure is so vital a drive that if you put an electrode in a rat's brain into the center where dopamine is released and put a switch on in front of the rat will stay there and switch that switch on and off, click it on and off, on and off, on and off, all day, all night until the rat dies. It won't even go for food or water. Pleasure is so powerful that the rat will just push the button. Well, when we meet a potential mate and the vibes are right, there's a drawing together. If the relationship starts off and it's really pretty cool, then dopamine becomes part of the synthesis from the brain, which is all this pleasure. So it's like, oh, wow, I'm so in love. It's so pleasurable. It's so great. And then at the same time, another chemical called vasopressin is released. And this vasopressin makes you more attractive and attracts you to other people. So it's an attraction kind of thing. So not only are you feeling pleasure, but you're totally attracted, magnetically attaching to this individual. And then the nature said, well, I want this to last for 13 years. So she releases another chemical called oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical. And when that is released, the nervous system is drawn to the source of pleasure and tries to make a bond with it, just like a chemical bond, to hold on to that, because this is where the pleasure is coming from. And if all this is going along well, of course, then you're creating a relationship that is going to sustain itself for at least 13 years, if not longer, of course, for any extra kids and then grandparenting, etc. And so we have all this chemical drive. It's not even in consciousness. It's below all of this stuff. And then the last chemical that really makes a big difference is serotonin. And serotonin is a chemical associated with obsessive compulsive behavior. And think about it, love is a prime example of obsessive compulsive behavior, because when you fall in love with somebody, you obsessively think about them and need to be with them, and it's like connecting and staying in contact with them. Oxytocin is driving this, and encourages it, because oxytocin causes the serotonin to come out, and that serotonin, in addition to providing obsessive compulsive behavior, and this is the hard part, serotonin is associated with addiction. So when you fall in love and all this pleasure is coming, you're bonded to the source of this pleasure, but you become addicted to this source of pleasure, and that's to keep you together for this long period of time, to be parents as the child is, growing and able to sustain itself.
Okay, so, Bruce, take a breath.
Whew. I had to get through that, because that's all unconscious. That's all that we're driven to this unconsciously, which creates a problem sometimes when you can't find it.
Okay. I want you to explain to me the relationship between the thought, the vibe, and the chemical messengers. Because you described really some fascinating research in which somebody took a sonogram of a fetus while its parents were arguing, and the poor thing was very agitated and upset. And then you described other research where you say that the emotional and mental abilities of children are programmed by the repetitive patterns of emotional chemicals that they are bathed in within the mother's womb. So tell me, where does the role of the chemical messengers, leave off, and what is the role of subconscious thought and programming?
Okay, well, the first thing is this.